name is Leszek, and I will be talking with Philipp Deutscher about CTO role expectations and operational excellence.
So, Philipp, can you share with us your professional journey from being a developer to becoming a CTO and now a CTO/CEO, coach, advisor? What were some of the pivotal moments in this transition?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. I was following some of your episodes in the past, and you also already had one of my former colleagues, Martin Rusnak. I think he was joining the 10th episode very early. Correct. So yeah, I'm listening into your podcast from time to time. It's very good. So I started my journey roughly 22, 23 years ago. I studied computer sciences. And then I, as many others, I started my professional career as a software developer in various industries, from e-commerce to aviation to sports betting to health tech to insurtech, B2B SaaS, B2C SaaS, and so on. So I have various experiences in very different industries. And I took over more and more responsibility relatively early in my career. I became a senior engineer. I became a Scrum Master later on. I took over leadership roles at Typico, where I became Director IT Operations. I became Director Engineering at TeamViewer. I was promoted VP Engineering at TeamViewer. And then I took also non-engineering leadership roles. I also took over the Managing Director role at TeamViewer. I was helping them to build up a new subsidiary in Greece, a new engineering hub. Yes, that we built up from scratch. We founded the new subsidiary there, and we raised it up to, I think, 70 engineers. Up until then, I was founding my own company. I took over later on when I returned back to Germany. I left TeamViewer. I took over my own business. I founded my own business, and I took over interim and fractional CTO roles. I started to provide consultancy advisory to CEOs, from startups to scale-ups to enterprise, in very different situations. And not only that, I also found out that I liked a lot supporting engineers in their growth journey, helping them to become leaders. So I thought, hey, maybe this is something I could also do and start talking to engineers, helping them to understand where they are at their journey. Do they have the ambition to become CTO one day? And maybe I can help them getting there, because what I did and on my own journey, it took me more than a decade to fulfill this path. And there are no mentors out there, or just a very few mentors out there. And everything that people can actually do is start learning by practicing, or from books, or now from some podcasts, but it was very different back then. That's why I also decided to support ambitious engineers to become tomorrow's CTO, as I usually say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Nice. Out of curiosity, did you were you in a situation where actually a person who initially wanted to become a CTO or a basically tech leader decided after discussing with you what's it like, what's needed, etc. Because apparently it's not a role for everyone, and sometimes there's a organizational pressure, sometimes there's inner pressure to go up the ladder towards the managerial roles, and sometimes people realize that it's actually not for them. And I'm wondering if you were in a situation where this occurred early on and somebody changed his mind or not. I mean, I'm asking out of curiosity, actually.
Yes, and that's happening quite often, and especially in the first qualification call, where I also try to understand if someone already at a certain level that I feel I can provide the necessary guidance for someone to make the step. And what I realize is there are a lot of misconceptions or false beliefs about the CTO role. And many people believe a CTO role is 80-90% about technology. And they believe that they need to become just better in a technical field to proceed in their career and become CTO one day. And when they hear that from my experience and also from the experience of other CTOs that in the end, maybe only 20% of what they're doing is related to, let's say, the field of technologies. And then there are a lot of other fields like strategic decision-making, expectation management, risk management, hiring people, leading people, and so on. Then they realize, oh, this is not what I have in mind. And then they start dropping out, right? This is the usual part where they realize that the CTO role is not what they have in mind. But also, like, controversially, it's also like the other way around. A lot of people where I believe they would be a good fit in becoming a CTO one day, they say to me like, no, I never want to leave hands-on engineering, and I still want code hands-on, and I want to follow this path.
Interesting. So both false negatives, false positives, and or
exactly, quite a lot.
Interesting. You mentioned misconceptions, but I'd like to talk also about the challenges. What are the most common challenges you've observed tech leaders facing today, especially when scaling their teams? It's a different aspect of the CTO role, not always the case. I mean, in many organizations, the scaling is actually not a priority these days. But I was wondering if you could talk about a little bit about some general themes and the challenges that CTOs or aspiring CTOs face.
I think in previous times it was more mandatory for a CTO to be the best engineer in the company. I think that has already changed quite significantly over the last decades. I think especially the CTO role is you need to be very adaptable. You need to adapt to a lot of changes. And the question is, can you adapt to those changes by yourself? Can you moderate those changes? Can you communicate them? Can you sell them to your team? There is a concept that was built by, I think it was Ben Horowitz, about wartime and peacetime CEO. I think the same concept also applies to wartime and peacetime CTO, right? And this is like, you need to find the right balance between, can you give your engineers and your teams a room for creativity and decision-making, and can you empower them? Or are you in a situation where you need to take over and you need to make those decisions? And ideally, as a CTO, you can play on both fields. But in reality, like, we all have a natural tendency to be more wartime or more peacetime CTO or CEO in the end. But also, like, recruitment is becoming more important than ever, right? Good talents are scarce, even though these days a lot of people are laid off. But finding good talents in the market which are a good fit to you and to your tech stack, to your company culture, to make them stay, to help them to grow, to empower them, and to retain them in the company, that is the ultimate challenge, right? Because I think what we always forgot is how expensive it is to replace a good engineer leaving the company. And that is one of the most crucial aspects, in my opinion, or challenges for a CTO these days.
I'd like to do a follow-up to the recruitment statement you just made. And I like to know if there are particular tactics or strategies that help you with the recruitment. I mean, not attracting individuals to apply, but rather, how do you actually hire the right talent? What worked for you in the past? Or what advice could you give to other CTOs who maybe are doing it for maybe not a first time, but like are struggling with the decision-making process, whether somebody would fit the organization or not?
Yeah. I think a very general rule of thumb is I usually value mindset higher than skill set, because I believe I could teach, and you can teach an engineer literally anything in terms of technology if he or she is a good engineer, and if she's interested, then he can learn a new technology, a new programming language relatively fast. But you will never be able to change as a leader is the mindset of someone you're going to hire. So if someone is not an ideal fit to the company culture, if he doesn't have like a can-do mentality, if you see someone having signs of, I don't know, passive aggressiveness or those like learned helplessness, that's how I call it. And it's also, I think it's also a term in psychology where people always say, yeah, I couldn't do it because someone else was not doing this and this and that, right? And I believe people who understand if as long as they're in the driver's seat and if they take the responsibility, then it's their responsibility also to overcome those hurdles and so on. And this is one indicator for me if someone is really a good fit for my teams, actually.
Mm-hmm. I see some resemblance to extreme ownership and that aspect of people attitude. Very interesting. Speaking of mindset and skill set, are there any particular indicators in that two areas for a person that could indicate that he's a good CTO candidate? You've mentioned some of them, but we were talking generally about software engineers. But if we narrow down those skill set and mindset things, are there any specific things that you are looking for in a CTO or a potential CTO?
I think it's especially the willingness to take over responsibility. And it sounds very simple, but it was also a big learning for me on my path for becoming CTO, because it's very easy to say, I want to become responsible for a certain project. But then really understanding what responsibility means, and that it doesn't mean like, hey, I sent someone an email and he was not responding to me for the next 7 days, so it's his fault because he was not responding to me. This is exactly part of the learning curve where people need to understand what responsibility really means, and that the responsibility will not shift over to someone else just because you were asking someone for a certain information or doing a certain task, right? And this ultimate ownership, that will not shift away. And this is something where I think a good CTO or a good leader in particular has this kind of ultimate ownership.
Interesting. I think would you agree to a certain extent at least that it's related to, owning things that are actually beyond your control? I think that doesn't come easy to many people, that are accountable for result. You're responsible or responsible for the result, but it's usually beyond your control. It's under your influence, but you don't control those tiny, things like other people's tasks, right?
Absolutely. 100% agree.
I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about operational excellence. I love this phrase, by the way. I don't know. Maybe I abuse it a little bit too much. But you emphasize guiding CEOs, CTOs toward operational excellence. Could you describe what operational excellence looks like in a tech environment and how can it be achieved?
Actually, it's a lot about sense of urgency. It's about efficiency. It's about having the right processes in place. It's about environments having necessary robustness and reliability. So question is always, can I scale with not only my technology, but also with my teams? Can I recover quickly from setbacks, from incidents? Do I have the necessary metrics in place so that I understand where I am on my path to operational excellence? Is there anything left that I can automate? Do I have infrastructure as code in place? Do I already work with DevOps? Do I already work with site reliability engineering methodologies? Do I work agile? Do I have already the right measurements in place? Do I measure the right things? And do I have the processes that support me to keep things up and running? I think, it's a mix of a lot of things that need to come together so that you actually can achieve operational excellence. And usually operational excellence in technology turns out, the consequence is if you're not operational excellent, then you might have either a very low time to market, or you will face incidents in production because you cannot keep the system up and running.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I understand that it's a mix, as you said, like agility, project management, having like at least introducing mechanism of control, observability, all that stuff. That resonates with me very strongly. But if we could dive a little bit deeper, do you look at things in the tech industry, tech environment? Do you look things beyond the DORA metrics, like lead time for changes, availability, reliability, all those things? Are there anything other like specific, say, metrics or things you observe to know whether you are on the right track, whether you're in control, whether the things are heading the right way?
Yes, I mean, very obviously, first thing you need to look at is, I mean, metrics are usually following a cascade, right? You start on top with one thing, which is very important. Maybe it's your availability or your uptime. And there are certain other measures that you have in place. How quickly can you recover from incidents? So what is your mean time to recovery? What is your mean time to resolve? What is your mean time to solve a problem after you fix an incident? What else? The mean time between incidents, so to say. Those are very operational metrics. But when you also go one step back into the software development lifecycle, then you have metrics like lead time and cycle time, which are giving you an indication about how good are you in delivering and new stuff and bring it into your production environment, right? So this is very important. And just one quick example about, because I mentioned sense of urgency as one of the key indicators, which is very important for having operational excellence. There was a time at TeamViewer a couple of years ago where the company had some issues with production environment failing from time to time. Customers were not happy and so on. And what we realized back then is there were like uptime and availability was not measured properly. So what we did is there was a huge ticker in the entrance of the headquarter, which was always showing like the sales numbers from the last day. And what we did in the very beginning, we just added the availability number on this ticker as well.
Nice.
And this change alone created a huge sense of urgency in the whole organization, because everyone entering the door was looking at those ticker. And if the availability is not where it should be, and there was an incident yesterday, everyone was asking questions. The CEO was asking questions. So of course we added it to monitoring walls and so on. But this change alone was creating such a sense of urgency that it helped us to turn the ship around very quickly. And that was not about technological change. It was not about changing, teams or processes. It was just creating awareness. It's actually, you improve what you measure, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's very, like, it touches on many aspects. It creates sense of urgency. It sort of links technology with the business. Business requires availability, but it also creates this ownership mission. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit about coaching and your approach to coaching. And my question here is, how does your approach to coaching differ when working with established CTOs versus those who are newly transitioning into this role?
It's true. I'm providing coaching and also a masterclass for ambitious engineers who want to become CTO. I'm not really working with already existing CTOs. I'm working more with the CEOs, right? It's usually a CEO who wants someone with CTO expertise at his side to support him in some business areas, or where I can fulfill temporarily a leadership role in his team. But on the other hand, I'm supporting like people I usually work with, and I'm helping them to grow into a position like mine. I have not as many touch points with existing and established CTOs, only like on conferences and so on.
Could you share a specific case study or anecdote where you help to transform a struggling tech leader into somebody who's successful and a successful powerhouse, if you will?
It's actually a former employee of mine who was also just recently finishing with the masterclass. And the first thing that he learned, because he was coming to me, he said, "Okay, Philipp, I want to become CTO one day. And first of all, I needed to to manage his expectations, that even though he would take my masterclass, he would not ultimately immediately become CTO afterwards, right? So we are working more on the CTO readiness of someone. It's more about helping them to create the right personality, understanding concepts that are necessary for becoming a CTO. Learning leadership, learning about communication, learning about, especially about expectation management, which is still overlooked quite a lot in not only in engineering, in many aspects of in the company, that people are not communicate clearly about expectations. And this is what is really helping them to prepare themselves for later on taking over more and higher leadership roles. Yeah, you have to understand your own personality and your own aspect of your character if you want to lead others, right? And that is also part of the coaching journey, that I help people that they understand better who they are, where they need to look at, what are their weak spots or their blind spots. But as you also mentioned, it's a lot about confidence. If someone already has the confidence, he would immediately go out there, he would prepare his CV. I mean, there are a lot of open CTO positions on LinkedIn. Why don't they apply, right? What do they have to lose? Nothing, right? And the concept that people always or often have in mind is, I'm in a company, the company already has a CTO, so there is no path for me to become a CTO. And that's not true, actually, right? There are thousands of ways how you can become a CTO. You can join a startup where you can actually be still in the first phase of a startup, you can be more an engineer than a CTO, and later on grow more and more into the leadership role and the more strategic part of the role. While in the beginning, you can focus on what you are already good at, and this is engineering, right? Or if you are already more experienced in leadership because you have taken over already like a tech lead role, a team lead role, a director role, then maybe other companies like scale-ups are already looking for a CTO who already has some leadership experience. And then you have enterprises. In an enterprise, like a CTO role is not comparable with a startup CTO role at all, right? So there are very different things that make a difference in the CTO role. And then it's also not every CEO is looking for the same CTO. There are different aspects of leadership or of culture or of technical proficiency which are needed by a CEO. Someone is also like having some engineering knowledge, so he needs someone else by his side who is more like an architect. The other one has no understanding about engineering at all, and he needs a CTO who has also business acumen and he can explain things so that he can understand, right? And this is like, there is no just one model for a CTO out there.
Totally agree. I've got two more personal questions for you. The first one is how do you continue to grow and learn in the field? Are there any specific resources that you use or practices you recommend? I can only imagine that your coaching, mentoring work drives you a lot of maybe challenges or way to grow, different cases, different people, probably that drives some of the learning. But first of all, is that true? And secondly, are there any specific method practices you'd recommend for people like yourselves to grow and continue learning?
There are several aspects to this question. I mean, first of all, I put myself into situations where I can learn. So new companies, new roles, new industries. I recently took over the advisory board role in a startup. That's my first advisory role in a startup, right? Of course, I have a lot of experience left and right, but it's the first situation. So I'm definitely learning from this as well, right? Secondly, if you have a growth mindset and you have the ambition to say, I never stop learning, you are always curious to find out what's next, right? I'm reading 50 books per year for the last 5-6 years at least. I'm still doing Udemy courses or Coursera courses if I have some time to finish them. And then it's about reading the right literature and blog posts or following YouTube videos and so on. And there is a lot of information out there. You need to filter and you need to figure out what is the next best thing that you can learn and where you can grow.
Nice. Next best thing. Very nice. That's great advice.
Yeah, that's the most crucial question. So sometimes it's like I find a book and it's about a field where I've read already 10 other books. And then so my first instinct is, okay, I would like to read this book as well. And then I need to hold myself back and say, no, but what are you really expecting from this book? Is this like groundbreaking? And are you expecting to gain knowledge from this book that you have never heard before? So maybe you focus on something else where you might have a weak spot. And me transitioning from an employee role to an also entrepreneurial role, that also created a lot of tension, and I needed to learn a lot about sales, about marketing, about how to promote myself and make myself visible out there. So this is how growth works. So put yourself in situations where there are things that you do not know yet.
In the situation of discomfort. To an extent. Okay. And my final question is, could you share the most valuable lesson you learn along the way, if there's such maybe lessons you learn along your professional journey?
I think there is one saying in English. It means, if it is to be, it's up to me. So, and this is very powerful for me because it puts me in the driver's seat for literally anything or everything. That doesn't mean that I need to do everything, but I ultimately feel accountable for everything. And I feel if I want that something is going to happen, then I'm the one who can steer the ship in the right direction. I can still delegate, I can still manage, I can still tell people, okay, this is what we need to focus on. But I always need to tell myself, if it is to be, it's up to me. And then you still need to find the right balance between empowering people and giving them direction and not micromanaging them if you exactly know what you want to have. And this is the essence that you need to figure out by yourself.
Very nice. It resonates with me a lot. All right, Philipp, thank you very much. It was great advice. Well, thank you for the words of wisdom.
Thanks a lot, Leszek.
Better Tech Leadership powered by Brainhub. Follow Leszek on LinkedIn and subscribe to the Better Tech Leadership newsletter.